How do we help our children get the specialized education that they need to become the people that they want to become? Today, we're going to have two historic examples of men who created pretty astounding careers, one despite his family, and the other because of it. After I recorded last week's episode, I had so many other things I wanted to say. I mean, that's a great thing about a podcast, right? Because you can just keep talking and no one's going to stop me. But it's great because then I thought about all the other things I wanted to talk with you about. And one of the things is that, let me clarify, let me be clear that education or having structured learning is not a bad thing at all. It's what I think is wonderful is specialized training or specialized education. I mean, that's what I did to become a photographer. That's what I did for all of my acting training and things was I took classes. I had teachers. I took programs. And yes, I did go to school. At the same time, I could have learned the same stuff because there's now different places and different formats for those to be taught. Way back in the day, all they really had was you could have vocational training, you could apprentice with someone and learn a trade, or you went to a university and you got your higher education, and that was a mark of good breeding, and it meant a lot. I think it meant a lot of different things than it does today. Today it means crippling student debt or wasted years when you're I just want to clarify that childhood is the best time for people to be able to explore their interests and talents. It is the only time where you're not going to have to figure out how to pay for your life. And you have unlimited time to be able to explore and try things. Now, that does not mean that if your child says, I want to be in Cirque du Soleil, and then next week says, no, I want to be a cowboy, and I want to learn how to wrangle cows and ride horses, and then just keep changing their mind to these big extreme kinds of things that require lots of specialization. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is having that time, uninterrupted time to pursue one's passions. And like last week, I said how I would have coveted that. Oh my gosh, to be able to have the freedom to be able to, for me, to do art all day or sew or go make stuff in the kitchen and explore and learn trial and error. Because that's how we learn, by doing, by experiencing it, and also by learning from others who are very skilled at it. So I'm a big fan of specialized education, but it's different. I think when we think of education, we think, put your monocle on, and oh yes, education. My child is so educated. They can mishmash with the hosh posh. And really what it is information. Okay? And we have ideas about what information is valuable and what is not. And like I shared in last week's episode about my son who is obsessed with Pokemon, he has become a total SME, subject matter expert, at Pokemon. Do I find utility in this? I personally, actually, I do. Though on the surface, as a woman especially, I go, why is this? Why should anyone care? But guess what? We live in a niche society now where people who are highly specialized in niches can actually do incredibly well. I don't know about you. Maybe your kid has also said what several of my kids have said, that they want to grow up and be YouTubers and they want to play video games and have people pay them millions of dollars. It's like, yeah. I mean, it used to be not long ago. It was people were saying, I want to make video games and make lots of money. And that's my ideal job. It changes. Now you have girls who say they want to be influencers and just prance around in their underwear. I mean, I am not, what am I saying about this? It's my point going back to the Pokemon thing in our niche society of that's actually how people are going to succeed, because a lot of these jobs that we are traditionally have been told are very successful, very lucrative, very secure, right? Very secure jobs, they are in danger. They are in danger of becoming extinct to us human beings because AI, it can do a much better job. HR, a lot of corporate stuff, data entry that people get paid to do and often make a lot of mistakes can be done in the blink of an eye by artificial intelligence. We are going to see this massive purge of these overeducated individuals who now can do nothing with their degree but work at the grocery store or the car wash or I don't know where. I don't know where. Wouldn't you rather have a child who knows how to navigate bumps in the road and say, oh, I can pivot, I can shift. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know how to learn. I know how to figure things out. I can think outside the box. Because the public education system and even the higher education system teaches you how to stay in boxes. It doesn't teach you how to be creative. People that often go into education, they want to stay in education. They themselves want to become teachers or professors. And how long is that going to last when we also have computers and programs who can, I mean, already they're doing virtual learning. Why do they need you as a teacher to tell their kids when they can just have a program that's going to provide all the information and someone who looks just like a person? So this might seem like a digression, but I'm just building the case for why I think it's incredibly important to raise resilient, capable children who know how to think outside the box. And here are my two examples. So I really love reading literature from the 1800s. I'm sure not all of it. I don't know it all. But Wilkie Collins is a great example of, he wrote the first detective novel in English. I don't know who wrote it first in some other language, but anyway, there's Wilkie Collins. And he was a precursor. He was the pioneer of that genre. And guess who came after him? It was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes. So it's really cool to hear like, oh, this guy paved the way. So I just finished a book, The Lady in White, and I started reading more about his parentage and his growing up years and all that. And here's what I saw. So apparently, lovely guy named Wilkie, he was born to a family, of course. Anyway, the point is that his father did not want him to become a writer. His father, the fear in his heart that his child would not be successful and be a pauper, or maybe even make his family look bad because it wasn't a honorable profession. It was, oh, those creative types, whatever his reasons were. He wanted his son to become a lawyer. And when he was still young, so this was back in the day where you did a lot of apprenticing, even while you did higher education. So he'd gone to boarding school or something. And then he went and apprenticed at I feel like I'm spreading misinformation, but I think it was a shipping business. And actually that makes sense because of the information that he shares in his writing. And it's like he had knowledge of the shipping industry. So he did that for a bit, and then he went to go study law. And the poor guy had to wait until his dad died to then pursue his dream of writing. And guess what? He was darn tootin' good at it. But what if his dad didn't die for a really long time and he was stuck being a lawyer because all of the pressure his parent was putting on him to have something that was stable, something that looked good? And then you know what happened with Wilkie Collins? Well, he became friends with Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens became his mentor, started publishing his work in Charles's newspapers, in the publications, magazines, not newspapers, sorry. And then Wilkie Collins' brother ended up marrying Charles Dickens, one of his daughters. So they're like family. And he was taken under the wing, under the mentorship of Charles Dickens, and Wilkie Collins flourished. He became wildly popular. And then his life, he made some different choices, and, you can read more about him. But as a parent, what does that story say to me? It says how much my fear of my child not being able to survive or making me look bad can ruin my best intentions. Like that, my best intentions are to have this child have security and, not make me look like a failure as a parent, like Wilkie Collins' father would have felt if he had started writing as his career earlier on. I mean, how much better could he have been? I mean, he did achieve success, and that is, I mean, it's a success story. It really is. But I wonder what would have happened if his father had done what Maxfield Parrish's father did for him. Maxfield Parrish, my youngest, is named after him, Parrish. And he was the most popular illustrative artist in the 1900s. And you may not have heard of him, which isn't that crazy? And that really attests to fame is kind of nothing. It's certainly not everything. But anyways, this guy he was super famous, super successful, and he seemed pretty happy with how his life turned out. Maxfield was born to, his dad's name was Stephen. Stephen's parents were Quakers, and they were very religious. So much so that they did not encourage really Stephen's artistic endeavors. And Stephen would have to go up into the family attic and hide to do his drawings and paintings. So he had to keep his love of art hidden. And Stephen was a good, obedient son and created a stable work life for himself. But secretly, he really wished that he could be an artist. So then when he saw that his son, born Frederick, but with the middle name Maxfield, and I'll call him Maxfield because that's what everyone knows him by. When Stephen saw Maxfield's talent at a young age, he dove in and provided so many experiences. And they would go out on this. So as he was young, like 6 or so, or even younger, he would take Maxfield out on day trips, and they'd go out to places to sketch outside and to paint and practice and really get into it. And then not long after that, Stephen valued the education, the specialized education of his son so much that he took the whole family and they went and they toured Europe, and he wanted to expose him to all of the arts. They went to the opera, to performances, musical things, and like on a weekly basis, often on a daily basis. And then they went to museums, and they would go to various teachers, and he would learn and study under them. He got into all these different art schools that it was specialized education. And because Stephen he saw his son's incredible aptitude and said, anything you need, buddy. I got you. What else do you want to learn about? And from that, Maxfield developed such a love of music. That was very much integrated into his art, and his process was listening to records of classical music and whatnot, as well as the style of painting that he did. I want you to look him up. I'm going to provide links to both of these guys in the show notes so you can see. But Maxfield, what he does with light, it takes your breath away. And he would do layers upon layers in his painting to create the effect that his paintings have. And it took oftentimes hundreds of layers to get those final pictures. It's incredible. What is the difference in these gentlemen's stories? Yes, both ended up being successful, made names for themselves, were famous. But as far as from a parenting perspective, one tried out of fear, tried to keep his son on a path of security by following a script. And the other said, hey, I see what you got. I see where your heart is and your passion. What else can I provide for you? Okay, just go. Go wild. How can I help facilitate the growth of this artistic love? Now, also, I gotta say, I mean, I'm sure Stephen was not a perfect man, and he may have been living vicariously through his son and said, I always wanted to be an artist, so I'm going to make sure my kid, who is pretty good at drawing, so I'm just going to kind of force him into that and just like make art the most important thing. Like if your kid has a relatively good arm and you're like, oh, okay, that's great. We're going to baseball. We're just everything's about baseball. It can't be about anything else. I want to warn against that as well. That it's our children's lives. But I tell you what, I can I share my experience? My eldest son has, from an incredibly early age, demonstrated that he is very engineering minded. And he would be so talented at anything regarding engineering, I think. And I've always thought, gosh, that would be a really good, you could make a decent income. It would be nice, secure. There's lots of areas that you can use engineering, so many different fields. And I've brought it up to him a couple times and said, hey, how can I help you in this? Because I think you're really wired this way. And as you become an adult, if you have financial needs, this would be a good career to be able to be comfortable. And every time I've brought it up, he's like, well, that's kind of interesting, but not really. And as a mother, part of me wants to say, you know what? I don't care. You have this aptitude. This seems like a good fit for you. You need to have something secure and you need to have some higher education if you want to make more than $20,000 a year. But guess what? It's not my life. And you may hear that and think, oh, still, that's so irresponsible of you. Now, even if your kid doesn't want to do this, you should require them to have a certain amount of education. You know what I'm going to create if I do that? If I force him to go get a degree in engineering, or he will be cut off from the family, basically, or I'll be ashamed of him, or he will lose my love. All these things that they're masked messages that we send our kids when we force them onto certain paths. We say, oh, that's nice, but you know what? Fear, 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 fear. Okay? All right. Bye. You cannot make it at all unless you go on this bridge. That's the only bridge that will keep you alive. That's what we're saying. And so our kid, they don't want to disappoint us. They don't want to die. They're going to go on that bridge and they're going to hate it. They're going to hate it. And they're going to find some other way to self-destruct, or they might, get that job and hate it for the rest of their life, but they're, at least they made mom proud. Anyway, if my son decides to not become an engineer, I'm not a failure as a mother. If he decides he wants to be a garbage man because it works with his schedule better and it gives him the free time to do the things that really make him happy, and it's a decent income, cool. Be a garbage man. What little boy doesn't love a garbage truck? You're always going to have fans waving to you out the window. The point is whatever your child decides to become shouldn't be a reflection on you. Are you a reflection on your parents? Did you turn out good because you followed the script that they said was proper and correct? I had a conversation with a couple girls, high school girls, that I was in a play with recently, and asking them like, hey, you have so much talent in this area. What are you planning on doing with it? Oh, I'm just going to go into teaching because that's secure. Or actually, I'm going to be a veterinarian and whatnot. And you know what? That is okay. We are not, if you have an incredible voice, it's not to, you can make other choices with your life. You don't have to go and make a career out of your talent. You don't. But I just think that there's a flaw in us believing that we can't do the things that we love or pursue those areas unless we are on that approved path. Like, well, if you love the creative arts, you got to be a teacher. There were several. There was another girl who I ran into who was into theater and just loved it, and her boyfriend's going off to Hollywood in a year, and you're gonna try out the life there and see what it's like. I got to do that for a bit, and I'm so thankful for that opportunity. I asked her, "Are you gonna go join him?" No, no. I mean, I think if I go into acting, it's gonna be to teach. Disappointed. Like, if anything, why don't you spend your youth while you're still young going out and trying it out? See what you can do while you're young and you don't have high living expenses or anything like that. That's the perfect time to go and try crazy things and go travel and experience the world. What if we had that possibility to have that kind of freedom when we were even younger? What if our parents weren't, or like our moms were at home with us and could take us to different places so that we could learn and see those things happening right in front of us, go to museums or whatnot. And so talking about like bringing real experiences. What if you set your kid up with a mentorship with someone in a field they might be interested in? Like I asked a friend of mine whose husband is he's a general contractor. And I asked, hey, can my son come and work with or like volunteer alongside your husband to see what it's like to see this in action, building. He loves to build. And this is what it looks like. And he got to do that a couple times. That exposure to, hey, somebody earns money this way. They can make a creative life this way. You just One of the things that blew my mind when I was going through my college years was working at summertime in the summers with a temp agency. Even though everything I was doing was corporate, I had no idea there were so many different jobs. They were all specializations. And that was never on, your list of careers. Maybe you have like HR, human resources, or admin. I mean, that's all I knew. It wasn't until you actually get in to the workforce or a work environment and you see, wow, there's something like this job and that's a specialization, and all you have to do is like get in the company and then you can move all over the place. Well, that's really cool. So, and that's not to say, oh, corporate, you're such a sellout if you work for a corporation. It's not that, but it's what kind of life do you want to have? And I just feel that pushing our children into these scripts out of our fear that they will not have security when they grow up is false. I mean, it's just a lie. I think the best thing that we can do for our kids is give them opportunity and freedom and resources. Speaking of that, like our town the school system has a homeschool assistance program, HSAP, and a lot of other communities have that as well. It's a great tool. It has, if your kid really wants to do some kind of curriculum or class, they have so many resources available and they will help you find the right fit for what they want and their needs. And they have libraries, you can check books out, and they have a lot of classical literature and things that make you feel fancy with your monocle. And I mean, because I like that stuff, I think it's fun. And they also help you so that you can also have dual enrollment into the public school so that your kids can do the fun stuff. So, like this year, my daughter has signed up for choir because she really wants to have that experience. She wants to be around peers and she wants that kind of elective. And wouldn't it just be so amazing if we could make school elective? Like all it was electives. You want to learn about Western civilization because you think that's cool? Huh, great. Sign up for the class. But you don't have to. You want to learn paper making because that sounds cool and interesting and fun. Every time you do one of those kinds of things that's curiosity based, I promise I can speak today. it actually opens up. It's like opening more doors into your brain. Like, oh, what about here? Oh, what about there? Oh, that's cool. Whoever thought? Oh, I wonder if I connect that thing with this thing, I could make something new. Wow. In the mom space of the internet, there are a lot of women that I've seen or follow who have started home based businesses. And these are women who found a need and a way to fulfill it. So it could be a gal who lived on a farm and she created some tallow balm and it really helped her daughter's skin and it felt so nourishing. And now she started selling it and then it just took off and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Did she need to go to college for that? Maybe if she learned some things about marketing, that would be helpful. Uh, you, all of that is available on the internet. You know, one of the things that I learned as a photographer was to ask other photographers for advice. Hey, I love your pictures. How do you do that? Are you using a particular f-stop on that? Like, what lens do you love shooting with? That's how I learned. A friend of mine, I've been shooting on auto for like a year and a half, and finally, a guy who was second shooting with me said, "Do you want me to teach you how to shoot manually and how to do off-camera lighting?" Because he loved, like most guys, loved all the techie parts of photography, and I was more like, I just want to work with the people and take the pictures and make it look beautiful. And so I said, yes. And so in 2 hours or less, he taught me how to operate my camera on manual and do all of this cool off camera lighting. And it up leveled my work fabulously. It was a hole in my education. Did I need to take a class? No, I learned from the best, someone who was already doing it well and could explain it well. And I had practical knowledge of it, utilizing it. Okay, this is how we learn. And your child is no different. And they are not deficient because you haven't put them in the public school system or they're not going into a higher education. I don't know if you remember, I certainly remember my college years were, I actually I didn't party. I wasn't one of those kids. I partied afterwards, after college. Um, but it was pretty useful. I would have been far better served by either apprenticing or doing an internship somewhere. And actually, I was really lucky in high school. Sorry, it's all about me. But from my experience, I want to share, like, this is the richness that I've experienced and that can inform how we parent our children. I was able to intern with a fabulous man who owned his own video production company. And it was actually through him that I did my first commercials, that I was in front of the camera. And then when I saw in his editing suite, I saw the commercial we shot put together with all the graphics and the music and everything. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, you can do this. Is a thing. This is a job. I have to do this. It was the biggest like soul calling that I'd ever experienced. And so uh, he allowed me to intern with him for my senior year. And so I got out of classes early and I went over to his home office and I learned all the ins and outs of, not all, but I learned a lot of ins and outs of video production and editing. And it was so cool to have that real world. And then from that, I was able to get other jobs. I decided not to go down that road in the end. And a lot of it was based on, well, but now I need to go and get my degree so that I will be a successful person. And that's all my parents said. I just want you to have that piece of paper. Just want you to have that piece of paper so that that you'll be okay. And I remember my mom saying, my parents drilled it into me that in case, something happened and I needed to provide for myself and my husband wasn't going to be there. And those are people who lived through the Great Depression and World War II and Vietnam, all these things that, like, you didn't know. Maybe your guy's going to be dead. I don't know. But it was telling women, I want you to prepare to not be safe and secure, to not be able to trust a man. Okay. So with that, make sure you go out and become a dental hygienist because you want to be able to keep the lights on in your house. Like, okay, I see so much fear in that, as opposed to trust that, you know what? I bet I could help my daughter learn how to have the most dynamic and strong and wonderful balanced relationship, to learn how to develop her communication skills, to understand men so that she can get what she wants and that he can be happy and you can have this beautiful symbiotic relationship and that you can stay at home with your children and love them up and nurture them and not rush them out the door because they're late for their bus or drop them off at school. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And then you're going to go to your 9 to 5 job and you're going to come home exhausted. So then you're going to have to either pick up some food or put something frozen in the oven and do that and then do the laundry and then look at your husband as he's sitting on his phone relaxing because what else is he going to do, and just stare at him sideways and say, oh, didn't even take out the trash, and have build up resentment because you're doing everything and he's not doing anything and you're contributing 50-50 and yet you're doing it all. What a wonderful life. Don't you wish that for your daughters? Wouldn't that just be great if they inherited that crap too? Oh, disgusting. I would much rather raise girls who know how to be excellent wives and partners, to be supportive and loving, and be strong and confident in who they are so that their man respects them and they can respect the man that they're with. To be able to organize their home in a way that it's a peaceful, wonderful place so that when he is out working hard for them, she's at home making a life worth living for them all. That sounds beautiful. Being a homemaker is not crappy. It doesn't have to be. And girls, we don't have to do it all. And that's not to say that you can't. You can be anything you want to be. You know, it's true. You can. But to be happy, we gotta really look closely at what that means. And so many of us are not happy. We aren't. We are tired of doing it all. I had so much resentment built up, feeling like I was doing it all. Was I doing it all? No. My husband was helping out a lot, and I was not valuing that. I was not taking that into account. I was just looking at me and feeling like, here I am, slogging through life, working, and in life at home was unfulfilling because I did not have the tools, the perspective, the information, and the knowledge that I want my daughters to have. I want you to have. And that is what this whole podcast is about. This whole woman awakening. It is about getting to that point of turning the tide and saying, I want to be a woman. What does that mean? It means letting go of the script that we have been told brings us fulfillment and safety and security and happiness because it has failed hugely. It has totally let us down. It is an absolute map for heartbreak, burnout, resentment, man hate, and disaster. It's a recipe for divorce. That is what the script is that we have been given and said, okay, now go make a life. I'm so proud of you. No. So I'm rewriting it, starting with my girls, starting with my boy, my family, starting with me. So I encourage you. We went on a deep dive here, but wrapping it back up with how are we supporting our children? Are we forcing a script down their throats out of our fear of them not being able to survive or thrive? Or are we really believing in their capability as people? They came to this earth for a reason. And it wasn't just to be a secretary. I mean, hey, you might be a secretary and you might absolutely freaking love it. Then that's where you should be. But how can we really do a better job with our kids by having faith that if they have the freedom that they need to grow and the resources, because there's so many resources out there. You do not have to be wealthy to give your children the resources to become super successful. There's so much that's free. So much. Your public library, the internet, almost everybody, no matter their social, their financial status, has a phone, and that has, things to look things up on. You can learn anything if you can read. And that taught me, that's the basis of my home education. You know how to read. You have time to be curious. You have me here making sure that you feel safe and secure and loved on and well fed. Great. I'm doing my job. That's all. That's all I need to do. So if you have any questions about unschooling or specialized education, hey, my kid really wants to do this. How can I connect here? Or, hey, how do you find other unschoolers or home educated families that are a little more flexible, a little more open, a little less rigid? How do you do that? Message me. I would love to share some of my resources and some of my thoughts. Also, I want to encourage you that if you'd like to join me I have a 4-week course that's starting September 22nd, and it is a chance for you to connect with the feminine. What does that mean? Okay, I'm looking for women who maybe you grew up as a tomboy and you just never felt okay, or like I'm not really a girly girl, or even if you were a girly girl, you still don't feel like you own yourself yet. I think a lot of us are there. Again, this is because of our programming. We are going to reprogram ourselves to allow ourselves to get back to our biology, to the way that we are designed so that we can naturally embody ourselves fully. We're going to be talking about like healing our hearts, rewiring our minds, and also getting girly. If this sounds good to you, if you want to be in a nurturing place where you can really step in and embody your feminine, because the feminine is all about receptivity and surrender. And if those things sound frightening and scary, this is for you. I need you to come with me because we're going to dive in, we're going to heal, we're going to rewire, and we're going to get so beautifully comfortable with being the women we are and living in that strength, that soft power of how we are designed to be. So you're welcome to email me as well or sign up for my newsletter and you'll get more information on that. That should be coming out this week. Yeah, and all of those things are in the show notes, so don't you worry. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming with me on today's journey. If you have some other historical examples or people in your lives where you say this person had the freedom to choose their education, to specialize, to explore and create, or if you had that, if your parents gifted that to you, I want to hear your story. Maybe we'll share it. That would be so cool. wholewomanawakening@gmail.com. Thank you for being here today. I'll be here next week. Come join me.